Actually JFDM.
Hey everybody. Actually JFDM here, and we just finished the latest session of Draw Steel. I believe it was session 6. And it was pretty much a session of winding down the adventure of saving the town of Broads from the Shadow Elves, the one I stole from Matt Colville in his adventure creation stream. The players basically completed it last time when they killed the overseer of the Soulforge. This time, this session, it was looting her office, and getting out of Equinox before the portal collapsed. Obviously, the big thing that happened last time was the Troubadour, Wido Longhole, died. I don't know if I mentioned in the last video, I think I did, but the Shadow, the Revenant Shadow, went inert. So effectively died too, but since he's a Revenant, he just goes inert for 12 hours and then he's back. So what happened at the beginning of this session is that the Elven Smith, who was chained up here, and that Wido specifically talked to and released, Cullenwyn, watched this fight. He didn't wait at the portal. He watched the fight because he had a vested interest in making sure that the two artifacts that were given to the Overseer along with him by the Invincible Overlord's people, he saw the aftermath of the fight and approached the remaining living PCs, Camille, Ravigold, and Nellie, and lamented Wido, saying, he freed me, he spoke to me, he deserves better, and hopefully we can give him that. Over the table, behind the scenes, I had been talking with the Troubadour player, and I think I mentioned it in the last video that there was the option of he started a new character, or maybe Wido comes back as a Revenant, and I also presented the option that he helped this High Elven Smith who knows people, knows other, strong magic users. And I was sort of surfing through the player book. There's an elven god by the name of A Sea of Suns, also known as the Composer. And the quote in there is, "You can live again through music," or something along those lines. I think I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Maybe I'll put the actual one up on the screen here. This is a troubadour and a high elf. It felt so perfect. So I presented that to the player saying, hey, you had a good rapport with this particular high elf. You saved him, and you were the one that spoke to him. No one else bothered. So that means something to this elf. And if you do want to keep playing the same character, which you don't have to, the character did die. We can leave it there. But if you want to keep playing the same character, this guy knows people, and you can get resurrected. So he was like, yeah, I'm good with that. I want to keep trying to play with the Troubadour. So that's what I deployed. I deployed Cullenwyn pushing for this. And of course the other players were like, they didn't necessarily know that this was the thing, but they also were okay with Cullenwyn's overtures towards it. They find the artifacts in the office. They bring the bodies back to Orden. They lead the people who were waiting outside the portal back to Broads. And of course, everyone's so grateful and happy. And at this point, they've completed the adventure for the most part. They still have to go back to the seat of the barony, Keep Anovia, and get their proper reward, if you will, from the Baron. They're enjoying their time as the heroes of Broads. Your money's no good here. The heroes of Broads will eat and drink for free in this tavern. They made fast friends with the tavern owner. Hunter is what I named him. Hunter of the public house. Drank and were merry. To wrap up the resurrection story, Cullenwyn approached the party and said, hey, I called a couple of my friends. They are going to be here soon. I don't want to make a scene in front of everyone. Would you join me just outside of town? So they agree. And so they myself along with the party described setting up the inert shadow, the inert revenant, with like shades and a drink, and it was basically like weekend at Bernie's. Which, I mean, that's got to be the easiest, lowest hanging fruit for Revenant players that go inert. People are gonna do some weird stuff with their body for the time that they're out. I mean, if you're playing in a Draw Steel campaign and there's a Revenant in the party and they go inert and you don't do something funny with the body like Weekend at Bernie's, what are you even doing? But anyway, Of course, I've never actually even seen Weekend at Bernie's. I'm solely making that reference because How I Met Your Mother makes reference to that. I've watched that show so many times, and I'm gonna watch and listen to the How We Made Your Mother thing that's about to come out in a few days. So, sorry, random tangent, but so they go join Cullenwyn outside of town, and these two other high elves who have a very sun elf lean approach them. Tirale and Teclin. And Teclin is pretty haughty and doesn't really want much to do with these quote unquote lesser beings. So he takes Cullenwyn aside and is talking to him. But Tirale is a conduit of A Sea of Suns, the composer. And so she leads the three conscious PCs in a song that they harmonize to bring the soul of Wido Longhole back into his body. These three PCs, I gave them a title called Soul or Singer of Soul. Basically, they have participated in singing someone's soul back from beyond. And so there was three options that I created. One was to just gain the music skill, pretty straightforward. Another one is if you already had the music skill, you could apply it to checks to recall lore or history, because like the auditory recall, I can't think of the very specific name for it. But then the one that I made that was a bit out there was a triggered action. If an ally drops, basically would die, you could try to make a medium presence test with music to stop them from actually falling below that threshold, and they would just remain above that threshold instead. So I said, okay, yeah, here you go. You three can pick one of each of these. I know the conduit chose the music skill. I don't know what the others chose. They didn't specify to me. Cullenwyn gives them an ingot of sun metal, Leonar, and his notebook says if you get a place of your own, I'll be happy to visit, help teach you. So just sort of setting up project sources, project prerequisites for them to be able to craft things. And the elves are off, so they got a couple of recovered like notes and things from the overseer's office. One of them was a note from the Queen of Shadows that reads, "Overseer Eclipsis. Your work is paying many dividends with our allies and benefactors. Mortem visited personally to commend our efforts. You prove your worth to our kind once again. Things progress well. Keep hidden from my sister, continue your productions, and we will return home properly on wings that burst from the broken sun. Yours in shadow, the Queen of Night." This is just a nice little note to hint at the connection to Ajax, Mortem being Ajax's chief wizard, I believe, and also at this whole Crack the Sun plot line of, in a world where this goes all the way to 10th level, these people, these beings, this pact is trying to release Cythrion Uranazir from their prison within the sun. They also find a poem in the pocket of the Overseer that I made just for fun. Maybe it'll come into play, maybe it won't, but it's in shadows deep where secrets bide. Kin of equal night do hide, a force within celestial light, held in chains by ancient might. To shatter bonds and free great time, seek the parts laid out in rhyme. First, a shard from prison's core, next the veil of twilight's door. A fragment of the force contained, tempered by the prison's flame. Find a place where day is born, a hallowed spot from dusk to morn. Last, a bloodline sacrifice to tie those who pay the price. When all is gathered, stars will weep, unleash the power, wake from sleep. So basically that's just a poem laying out 5 things needed for like the final ritual, which again won't come into play for a long time. So I don't know, it's just a fun little seed to plant now, and maybe I'll come back to it later if this continues with when the full books are released. I gave them 3 leveled treasures just because it felt fun. The King's Roar shield, which is in the book. Maybe I'll post, I'll take a little snip of it and put it here. Words become wonders at next breath, and Bloodbound Band. So one obviously is a leveled treasure armor, the shield. One is a leveled treasure implement, the book. And the Bloodbound Band does more if you have more of them, which I do think that they'll start finding them occasionally. Initially, it gives like a pretty good stamina boost to the person wearing it. It's like 6 stamina, roughly a 15% increase for someone. So some interesting things. They seemed they handed those out. And they seemed pretty happy with them. From there, they spent 2 days in Broads, and they did some project roles. So the Troubadour spent time cooking and learning a new recipe. The Null spent time doing community service and ended up getting all the way through it because of a roll on the table. I decided to roll an event just to see, and I rolled a 10, so he got the help of a ne'er-do-well, but the next time he sees this ne'er-do-well do something against the law, he has to look the other way. So, so I wrote that down to save for later, because that should be interesting. And then the Conduit went fishing, rolled a crit on the first roll, which means the way fishing works is you roll power rolls using the skill until you either get 11 or less, or you hit a 19 or a natural 19, natural 20. At which point you get a breakthrough and you roll on the fishing chart, and then whatever points you accumulated rolling, you can spend on tackle. So he crit and got that breakthrough on the first roll, which meant he could roll another roll, but the cheapest thing to buy on the tackle thing is 50. But I rolled on the fishing project chart, and he got the one that gave him the Master of Reels title, which lets him, if he uses a ranged ability that doesn't push someone, he can pull them in. So that was pretty cool. Just one roll, instant title. It's pretty hilarious. The tactician decided to repair the roads. Got 2 really good rolls and repaired like 8 miles worth of road. And so has gained a renown in the Broads area for doing so. The Shadow began using the local blacksmith, the dagger that he collected, the Leonar, and the book from Cullenwyn, and started working towards crafting a treasure, which I actually need to create. None of the ones in the book were particularly fitting. They all have very specific items needed. There wasn't anything more generic, so I need to make, I'm going to make something specific. But we knew that it would need 450 project points. That's what all of them took. So he just started making rolls and started working towards it. So, yeah, he's going to be crafting himself a dagger or some other light weapon out of some Leonar and this Shadow Elf dagger and Cullenwyn's knowledge. So that should be pretty spicy. So after 2 days, they left Broads and headed for Anovia. Now, they wanted to take a detour and go to the shrine to Solarna that Reyna, the polder they met back in the very first episode, set up and maintains in the wilderness off the road. Decided that they wanted to go there, but they also had this Knight of Anovia with them, Sertaja, and they weren't sure how Sertaja felt about the whole religion thing, because obviously there's, other religions or other organized religions aren't super tolerated. So they sussed out that Tasha didn't care, so they all went. And it was, a small shrine in the woods, and there was like a garden there, and it was well maintained. So the conduit, being a conduit of a nature deity trained in religion, sits down and takes a pose and starts, sort of praying and trying to channel the magic and the divine magic here, and rolled a very high roll, and so got a reward of a growth potion, which I described as basically a bundle of flowers and stuff put together here, and it's sort of like all as this garden grows and becomes more lush and more vibrant, these things come and they start to like grow around you, and this thing is like dangling in front of you. You take it. So he's got a growth potion. So they head to Anovia. They get their proper title from the Baron. And in this case, this wasn't like a title in terms of like a draw steel title. This was just the title of a knighthood in the barony. Though they aren't under the same obligations as a typical knight. If the Baron decides to wage war and call in her forces, they are under no obligation to come. So That's a nice little benefit for them. They get to keep adventuring. But they are officially dubbed the Heroes of Broads, and they are given a plot of land, which is generally kind of near Broads, though they end up finding out from the Baron's lore master that that particular piece of land is a little tainted. There's a bit of an infestation of Raiden Whites, and at some point the lore master referred to them as Skaven, which a couple of my Warhammer playing players understand that reference, and so that was sort of the oh moment. So they have the option to go to their new plot of land and clear out the infestation, whatever that looks like. Which I have created. I think I'm done creating the adventure for what is clearing out their land. So if they pull the trigger on that, I am fully ready for that. It starts with, obviously they have to travel back in that direction, but the first sort of encounter is they run into a traveling troop of Raiden Whites on the road, because Raiden Whites in the MCDM lore are very tied to music. And so I took the easy low-hanging fruit and did the Rat Pack. So I've got, a definitely not Frank Sinatra, a definitely not Dean Martin, and a definitely not Sammy Davis Jr. that are going to try to perform for the players, but it's all just a ruse so that other Raiden Whites can come and steal stuff from the players. Yeah, so we're going to see if they fall for that or if they're suspicious, and we'll see what happens. But the general premise of the adventure is there's these Raiden Whites in the ruins that are on the plot of land, and the ruins are the ruins of the Harrier Wing Barracks, which is a section of the Green Dragon Phalanx. The Chrysopolis appeared here, dropped a big old, basically a giant stone or metal wedge that just sort of almost like bunker busted this thing. And then the Raiden Whites moved in shortly thereafter. It was part of a deal they struck or something of that nature. The wedge is almost like a big tuning fork, so it amplifies music. So the Raiden Whites like it for that reason. It amplifies other things too. The leader is sort of a Archpontifex Lord Skrulk type character for these Raiden Whites. So he's got a few shards of definitely not Warpstone that he puts on top of this wedge, and then leads this choir of bells and singing. This big spike will effectively take whatever is placed on it, and then if it's vibrated, will spread it throughout the land in a localized area. So this could be done in reverse effectively if the players can find some fertilizer type of thing and put it on this wedge and then vibrate it, it'll fertilize the land. So there is a recourse, and they can definitely negotiate with the Archpontifex. That is an option. They don't just have to come in here and kill everyone. They can negotiate with the Archpontifex instead. I have set up the parameters of a negotiation, so it could come to that. Or maybe they'll just decide they want to kill this guy. Especially since a few of them know what Skaven are and might not think that there's a possibility to negotiate. There's the possibility also of an encounter with effectively like a werewolf, were-rat type thing. There's a werewolf solo that's level 1 that I'm gonna kind of doctor the stat block of, and they might end up fighting that thing. They'll be sort of warned about it by the Rat Pack. The Rat Pack is gonna sing part of a song and share some news. Some of the news being that there's a green-eyed ravenous rat beast, or they're not going to call it a rat beast, they're just going to call it a beast. Ravenous green-eyed beast that stalks the land, usually attacking at night, like Clan Molder-esque mutated Raiden White, as it were. I've built in a montage test as well. So the land is sort of overgrown with these tainted brambles, so there's going to be a montage test to sort of get through it, and however the players want to try and do that, cut through it. There's opportunities to try and find the path. I'm going to assume that they're going to bring their horses, because they brought their horses everywhere else so far, with the exception of going through the portal with them. I assume they're going to be on their horses. Make sure the horses don't get thorns through their feet, taken by twisted animals, fighting off twisted animals. Combat in the middle of this montage test. I'm kind of interested to do something like that. If they roll really well in the montage test, they might be able to find a secret path into the dungeon, if you will, to sort of bypass some of the initial floors, initial rooms, and yeah, so there's some interesting stuff to come. They also might, I think they're going to spend at least one more respite day in Keepanovia. I believe the Conduit wants to meet with Reina again and have a discussion, so I'm already ruminating on what is going to be the next thing I put in front of the players after the whole red and white thing. They should be second level, and well, it's going to be in Anovia itself, in Keepanovia, beneath the temple to Saint Llewellyn, the Church of Saint Llewellyn, in the town itself. Some catacombs with a relic that is needed by this pact as one of those 5 things from that poem. How are they going to get it? Why not just walk down there, The Iron Priesthood controls this area. They could just walk in and get it, right? Well, they're going to make their move for it. And I think it's going to start with echelon 1 level demonic incursions. There's going to be some deals afoot there. I think there might be an Illrigger leading a faction of the Hells that is tired of these demons, making incursions into the 7 cities or their particular city, and is trying to reroute them to the Prime Manifold instead. There happen to be interested parties who could use distractions, such as a group of interested baddies who want to recover a relic without it seeming odd since it's monitored. The other thing I want to think about deploying is rivals. I like the idea that one of them will be a green dragon knight, and so he'll be a little put off that the heroes now control his former home. So there's a little bit of tension rivalry there. And then aside from that, I'm going to sort of try and do more things like that with other members of the party when I make these rivals, and not have them overtly be like, hey, screw you guys, low-key be doing that. That's the conclusion of the Soulforge tree adventure. Some respite downtime, and then a look ahead at if the players decide to go clear out the land that they were given. There's some Raiden Whites, or since I'm a Warhammer player, I'm gonna probably refer to them as Skaven relatively frequently. And then a little look at the future. So thank you all for those of you that continue to follow this series, who watch these videos, who leave comments, and those of you that have subscribed, thank you for doing so. I'd encourage anyone else who's been liking these videos to do the same. And we'll catch you on the next one.